Is this human hair or is this synthetic hair? We are debating which one is better and which one should everybody be using. And hopefully we could put this argument to rest today. Thank you for
I'm not
watching.
debating. I'm not debating. I think
You're
there's
not debating.
strengths and uses for both. Now, you may disagree with me when we start talking, and then we'll be debating, and you'll be wrong. But right from the beginning, I want to say there are uses for human hair and synthetic hair. It's just what are you using for and when? And if anybody's on early right now and wants to comment looking at this beautiful picture right here, I should say beautiful colors. Is this human or synthetic? What would you think, guys? Does anybody have an opinion? People are not going to say before we tell them what it is. But what is it, Eddie?
This one is synthetic.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell because it's shiny, and that's one of the the hugest characteristic of synthetic hair. Not all synthetic, and not synthetic today necessarily. Synthetic started off as a flat, smooth surface that glistened and shined under the light, but there are higher end synthetics these days that are roughed up, look a little more dull, and look a little more human-like. And we'll go into details after that. But what do you want to say about this before we show another picture?
You know, the thing about it is it's very attractive in such a way of it's very smooth and it's very shiny. You could totally see the glare of light being reflected off off the bend, off the curvature over here. And this is what throws a lot of people off, is that they see the smoothness, they see the shininess, and they say, wow, this is really high quality.
Right. High end, high quality. Why are we duped as humans to think that shine is always high quality? Because that's what happens with hair. You have hair that most people's hair does not shine. There's a few people groups that do, but for the most part, hair does not shine. We put products, we put light, like my hair shining on top between product and light. But just with nothing in it, it would have a matte finish. And if I put some grease, oil, silicone, something to gloss it up, immediately the thought is it's healthier hair. Like when we sell hair extensions, people say, they guess, not just our extensions, but when they look at extensions at a hair show, there's the healthy hair. I learned a long time ago, people would say, check this hair out. What do you think? I don't know. I don't know what I think until I use that freaking hair for 3 months on a client's head that's shampooing every day, brushing and styling, how it performs. That's when I'm going to tell you what I think about your hair, because just looking at it and rubbing my hands through it tells me nothing. Now after 30 years of experience, I can get some feeling of if the hair is high quality or not, and a few other things we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Origin of hair, size of hair, human or synthetic, and I can feel it and I can get something out of it. But shine and I don't know, it almost looks greasy looking to me. Shine is not the thing that makes hair high quality or low quality. It's not the thing, but God, it's like, anyway, go ahead.
But that visual appearance, right? Because
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful picture.
It's a beautiful picture. And when you see that shine, it just looks beautiful too. Most people are comparing it to themselves. And if each individual person that is looking at this saying, wow, this is gorgeous, maybe their own hair they don't feel is as gorgeous, or maybe they don't feel their own hair is as shiny or as smooth compared to this. So then by default, this makes them feel like this is better than what they've got.
I guess so. And when I look at it and I say, this is beautiful, I think some people hear me and say, he just contradicted himself. He just said it is good hair, but I didn't say that.
No, I didn't say it's good hair. It's a pretty picture. It's beautiful.
Beautiful picture. I love the rainbow, and it's Roy G. Biv going on here. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, no indigo or violet going on. But I mean, I just love all the colors. It's part of the hair world, cutting, coloring, styling, and it's a beautiful picture. But that doesn't necessarily mean, and it might even be a beautiful wig during Halloween, or some other event that you need a fantasy color. And you know what else is going on here that I think about is that human hair is not made to hold those fantasy colors. So a lot of companies have had trouble through the years developing, and you know better the science than I do, but developing colors, I'm trying to be as generic as possible, that stay on human hair and look like this for a long enough period of time to be saleable, to make people happy. Because in the early days, I remember it. I mean, it started with anything and everything from vegetable dyes to Kool-Aid to try to color your hair bright red or some or
Yeah.
even blue.
Yeah.
And how long would it stay, depending on how bleached it was, how healthy the hair was. And so fantasy colors like this, just not natural and real hair. So sometimes synthetic, there's an advantage. But we'll get into the advantages and disadvantages later. Let's show a few more pictures that we have here. What else do you have?
Let me see if I'm gonna goof
Go to
this.
the next one or the last one, and let's see. So this is a zoomed in image of synthetic hair. It looks rough, doesn't it? But when you think about it, that is as flat and smooth as you can get in a microscopic image. Do you know that Neil deGrasse Tyson was telling Joe Rogan? He said, if you took the Earth and you took the highest peaks of the highest mountain and the lowest valleys in the oceans and into consideration, because of the size of the Earth, if you shrunk it down to the size of a cue ball, those hills and valleys, like the hills and valleys we see in this image right here, the Earth's surface would be smoother than a pool cue ball in proportion. So
That's so weird. Wow.
yes, I know. Because we think, like, when you look at the Earth from afar, it looks like a ball, a flat, smooth ball if you're out in space. But when you're on it, you're like, there's a lot of terrain. Just like this image here, it looks rough close up. Just like when you get to the Earth, it looks rough close up. But if you shrunk the Earth down to the size of a pool ball with the same reference points of heights and valleys, it's smoother than a cue ball under a microscope, even smoother, he said. And I thought, well, Neil's a pretty smart guy. I believe him, but that's a tough one to wrap your mind around, right? So go to one of the images of a close up of here. Go ahead.
Here's the thing with this being a synthetic, and people will look at this and go, man, this looks like a slab of concrete or something. This looks kind of rough. In comparison to the human hair strand, this is considered very, very smooth to touch, because even though there might be a little cracks or a little divots or however you want to refer to it as, overall, it is one extended long solid piece. If I go the right way, here we go. So like, if you look at a human hair strand, this is the scales of a human hair strand. This is what people refer to it as, the shingles on a roof,
What scale? Because this is the cuticle.
This is the cuticle of a human hair. This is a microscope image of human hair. And then it's different varying sizes as well, because there's different cultures, there's different types of people. So not everybody has the same size hair shaft either. With a synthetic, you could keep it really nice and uniform. That's how you're able to get that silky smooth look. That's how you're able to get that reflective shine. But in humans, because each culture has a different size cuticle and a different tightness, a different texture, a different wave,
right,
in varying degrees, that's why you're always going to get the offset of variance.
Yeah, and you made a good point there. Even on one person's head, the hairs vary in size. They've got fancy words for it. I've heard the word vellus hairs, but basically when you're bringing hair back, for people that bring hair growth back from bald people, and they have this hole in their head where the hair used to grow out of that doesn't anymore, and they start to bring it back, it's a small, fine, very, very little in diameter hair. And the same thing when you're losing and it'll come back bigger and bigger and stronger as you use the right treatment. But in the reverse process of losing hair, that hole that the hair comes out of, for a bunch of different reasons, sometimes just gets clogged up with oils, byproducts, hair products, all kinds of things. And the hole gets smaller and smaller and squeezes that hair off, and it goes from big to small also. So when you're bringing it back, you're cleaning out the hole, you're bringing back a hair, and it gets bigger and stronger. So on the same head, as you lose hairs, you regrow them, and they're different sizes. So that is a good point, Eddie, that on one head of hair, Generally, we have finer, smaller hairs around here. And as we go to the back, they get thicker and stronger. As a matter of fact, that's why transplant surgeons, when they put hair on the front of your head that they pulled from the back, they used to pull it from the very back of the head. And then they started getting it from this right behind the ear, because as they moved from the very back to here, the hair's got a little finer. Some people try to pull it from right above the ear. Of course, you're starting to get into the visual area, so you want to stay away from it. They used to just take little round balls of hair and leave bald spots on the head, but now they take a slice out of the head and then pull it together, stitch it together, and you just end up with a line scar, depending on how well you scar and how good the doctor does. But then they take that little slab of skin with hair, break it up and plant it in the front. And so the closer they can get to the front, the finer and thinner the hairs are, and it matches a little bit better what you used to have up there. You don't have that fine, thin hair to replace, so they take it from as close of an area as they can get. And that is an example of different size hairs on the same head. So when you've got a wig or a hairpiece or hair replacement or anything made out of human hair, you're going to have different size hairs, and it's going to make it look more natural compared to a synthetic system that's all the same. So
you know what you reminded me of too, Bernard?
Go ahead.
It's talking about transplants and doctors. Then there's also the human hormone and the human health. So a lot of people unfortunately, will go through a chemotherapy or some kind of heavy, medical treatment of some sort. And then when their hair grows, they lose their hair during the treatment. When their hair grows back, it grows back in a different texture. Or think about how many women, when they give birth, pre-birth, their hair was one way, and then after birth, their hair is a different way. Or even menopause, your hair was nice and straight and smooth, and now all of a sudden the underneath around the hairline is curly, but the top is still straight. So even on the same head of hair, you've all of a sudden start to develop over time different variations in textures. Not just the densities, but also textures. That's you just reminded me of all of that when you were talking about the transplants.
And one thing we don't have an image of right here is we show in just round hair. Hair has different shapes. I mean, some hair is more oval shape, octagon, hexagon, flatter, more round. So there's different origins of hair too. Just in my few years of 30 years of going through this, what we've learned is that what you got here?
I just want to show an example. Like while we're talking, I just want to show an example of human hair smoothened out.
And it's as smooth as you can get it, and it's only shining where the light hits it, and that's probably got a product on it. But in my 30 years experience, I started to learn that as we talked about quality of hair, there was a few large factors that came into play, and one was whether it was human or synthetic. Okay, so let's just say we're going for human hair for a minute, and we're talking about differences in quality in human hair. And then after this, let's talk about let's do quality of human, quality of synthetic, and then let's do some pluses and minuses of each. Like what's the advantage and disadvantage of the two, and what you can and can't do with them, and where you can and can't use them. But to go into quality of human hair, you've got, and I say quality, we're in America, we're in the US, we're putting hair extensions and hair replacement on mostly European descendants, white people in my salon, and they want a hair that matches their hair. If you're in a black salon, then you're trying to get hair that matches the client's hair. So in my salon, it's mostly white clients, and we're trying to match a particular wave, pattern, curl. And what I started to find out is that Chinese hair didn't work well, which happens to be the less expensive hair because it's the most prevalent. And maybe some of the manufacturers don't process it the same. They process it quickly and get it quickly. And maybe it's not as healthy because a person didn't take care of their hair. Some people take care of their hair better than others, right? So you get some hair that's not taken care of as well, and they'll use and sell that hair. But the main reason Chinese hair didn't work as well in this country for the average white client is it's a large diameter. Chinese hair tends to be a bigger hair than most European descendants in this country. And so you can kind of see it. It's also why synthetic hair didn't work very well, because it's a larger diameter. And with that larger diameter, we had trouble getting it to blend as well even if the next few things were in place, because origin was just first. The size of the hair, Chinese hair, Indian hair, European hair. And then, of course, you got a bunch of little side countries that say they supply hair that probably don't. Really knows? But there's a lot of places between Russia and in that Eurasia area that supply hair. And the closer you get down to Europe, the better it matches. And wow, my face got big. You changed the screen, huh? You always do
I guess
that.
we're done with we're done with the images.
Yeah.
It's so tiny down there.
Yeah. So the origin of hair was just number one, but then a company goes ahead and processes the hair, right? They use first they decide, are they going to keep all the cuticle going in the same direction if we're talking about human hair, and we would call that Remy hair, right? And I just asked in the class last Monday, what is Remy hair? And one person out of 5 knew. People don't.
I love it when you ask that question in class and people just stare blankly at you and they're like, isn't all hair Remy hair? Isn't everything your Remy hair? You know?
Well, it's crazy because you hairdressers even think they know. And I said, so who knows what Remy hair is? And a few hands went up, and I said, and who wants to tell me what it is? And then all of a sudden
those hands go down.
Yeah. One girl said, I said, it's when all the cuticle goes in the same direction. And most people think, well, isn't that just a given? And one girl says, I just thought it meant high quality hair. I didn't realize I didn't know. I said, well, it plays into higher quality hair, but it doesn't necessarily mean Remy. So that there's something's going on. You can have Chinese hair, which is a large diameter. That's not going to match my client's hair, but it is Remy hair. But it doesn't matter because it's large diameter, and I don't care if all the cuticles go in the same direction. So if some hair is going this way and some hair is going that way, well, then those cuticles we just showed in that picture kind of lot. It's already bad enough that the cuticle's rough and it kind of rubs against each other and wants to tangle a little and gets wrapped around each other. But when you've got them going opposite ways, and that comes from cutting hair, letting it just be in a big box or a bag, and then trying to sort it later. And some hair ends up this way, some ends up that way. They bundle it together and they use it. They bleach it, they color it, they sell it. And it's non-Remy, and it's sold less expensive, and it tangles a lot. So then they do chemical processes to burn the cuticle off, to try to remove cuticle and make it a smoother fiber, but then it doesn't hold color, it doesn't have elasticity, it wears out faster. So there's a lot that goes into this. So I usually cover 3 major areas, and I say where the hair comes from. Where's the camera? Where the hair comes from, the origin of hair. 2 is all the cuticle going in the same direction? Is it Remy? And then 3, how do they process the hair? If they process the hair quick and dirty like we do in salons, well, that's not going to be great, because if they do it quick and dirty, we have clients that need. I know hairdressers hate it when I say this, and I know some of you do a way better job than others, but we process hair in a salon a faster, less healthy way than it could be done if we had more hours. If you didn't have a client that needed to get back to their family, didn't need to get back to their kids, get their kids from school, or even needed to eat in between, you can take hours and hours to lift color out of hair, which is healthier. It's better for the hair. And then take a few hours to put the color in and let it dry. And that can happen over more time and get that color saturation better. And so it takes time, and time takes money. So if we're taking a long time to do this and we're storing that hair, putting all this effort and work into it, we've got to charge more. So when I say some companies just bleach it and color it like we do in the salon, they can sell it cheaper. So then they can get Chinese hair, non-Remy, and color and bleach it and color it quickly. That's cheap hair. Anything to say about all that?
The analogy I give is with food. If you have the time, you could do a slow cooker. You could throw that roast in there, and you can let it cook for 9 hours, 6 to 9 hours, right? And it's melting and falling apart and everything. Same thing with ribs. You could throw ribs in the cooker, let that go for really, really slow. Again, 6 to 9 hours. Those ribs just falling right off that bone. It's freaking delicious. Conversely, could you make a roast in 2-3 hours, and could it still taste good? I'm not going to say as good. I'm not meant to, but it could still taste delicious. It could still taste good, and you could do the same thing with ribs. Although I think that's an affront to ribs, but that's how that goes. So in the salon, these hair extension companies, the manufacturers, they'll spend a month between sanitizing, decolorizing,
Some do, some don't.
yeah, well, and then some companies will only spend a week or two, just like in the salon. I can get you in and out the door within an hour, and your color will look good and it will last. And I will rebuild the condition of your hair back uh, to presentable when you're walking out the door. Or I could spend the whole 12 hours of the day with you, but now the difference is this. What is your time to you, right? That's what it
And I'd
is.
have to charge you a lot more
Are you going to spend $2,000 with me
for
to
the
spend
day.
12 hours with me for me to cater specifically to your needs for your type of hair? Or is 100 something, I don't know what the average is, I'm trying to be general, but
Yeah, it doesn't
give
matter.
or take.
So let's move into so that's kind of the short history of health and quality of hair. I remember the first time I bought a weft. I was buying lots of weft, putting lots of wefts on hair 30 years ago. And the first company that turned me on to the difference in quality. And I have to say, I'm a little embarrassed to say this because I was young and dumb. And the lady, it was a manufacturer in Texas. And I called up to order hair, and she said, "Do you want the better quality hair?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "The tangle free hair." And I said, well, isn't hair just hair? So listen, when hairdressers say that to me now, I don't have much patience for lack of knowledge, but the few that I was real stupid in, I seem to have more patience in. I'm like, you know what? I used to think that too, and now I think, how could I think that? But I'm just a guy with short hair most of my life, so I've never experienced a bad before doing hair. I never experienced a bad salon service. Like, ugly haircuts. I'm like, ooh, I look stupid. My hair part on the side or the middle or all back or all forward. That's all I ever experienced. I wasn't that girl that went into a salon and got my hair highlighted or bleached for the first time and they left it on too long and I had breakage or damage. Even though my mom was a hairdresser, she was a good hairdresser and she didn't have those problems. So we didn't have the complaints. And so I don't learn about that till a few years in. But right at first, I just say, I just need hair. And she said, well, this one has a 3-month tangle-free guarantee. Now, I love the rhyme. And I said, what? So for 3 months, his hair is not going to tangle. And she said, yes. I said, well, all hair extensions tangle. I was just used to crappy hair. I thought that was just all there was. And I said, how can it not tangle? And guys, 30 years ago, no internet. She said, I'm going to send you some books with your next order. I'm going to send you a book. If you like it, you can buy the next 2. I ate that stuff up. It was little, I think they bound them themselves at the local printer. And it was all about where hair came from, the quality of hair. And I was like, what? I didn't know that all of this stuff mattered. I got this hair. It was a little more expensive. I think I felt like it was a lot more then. I don't remember exactly, but that's all I ever ordered from then on. I became like a quality seeker, and that's all I cared about anymore. I was like, it's worth paying more money because
Right.
I don't want to hear the client complain. My color faded, my hair tangled, it's falling out. All the problems that came with lower end, it wasn't worth it anymore to me. I loved being on the high end. I didn't get the complaints. Now, I had to get my technique up to par because that's what I find with hairdressers. It's either my 3-legged stool. It's either the hairdresser,
Yeah.
the client, or the manufacturer. And so I wanted to make sure it was never the hair. If the problem was going to happen, it was going to be me or the client. So I eliminated one of the 3 immediately. I'm always buying really good hair. And so then next, I tried to get really good. So now most of the time when I have a problem, I have to be nice because I want to say right away, it's you. You are doing something wrong at home, Now I have had bad days. But that's all about the human hair and the human hair experience in my life. Then when it came to synthetic, when and where do you use it?
Synthetic was interesting because when I first started getting into hair extensions, I wasn't, just like you're saying, I wasn't too familiar with it. What I was familiar with, though, at the time, I was doing a lot of hair shows and I was traveling all over the country. So my specialty for those particular shows was to create fantasy hair colors, a
Hmm.
lot of different rainbow, different colors, or a lot of just and during my time of my tour, the music back then was very much heavy metal and rock. It wasn't the R&B and the pop music that it is now. So everybody had a mohawk, everybody had some kind of insane hair color. It was very much a rebellious time, to have that kind of stuff. Otherwise, the only other reason why you had fantasy hair color was because you were in some kind of high fashion. Like the average person did not have fantasy hair color like they do nowadays. So it was a very new thing. It was a very hard thing to create. And it was a very hard thing to keep consistent. When you're on tour and you're doing a show every single night, especially like I toured with a couple of rock bands. I was a roadie for a while. And you
As
know,
a hairdresser?
as the hairdresser to the band, yes. And it's wild because they don't just go on. Your concert isn't just on Saturday. They're playing like every single night. It's a concert every single night. They're just in a different city every single night. So you're on the bus while you're driving from one town to the next. You're doing hair on the bus and you're sitting there going like this, like, can you somebody hold the head still a little bit?
Wow.
And you're trying to apply color and everything. So it's like I was touring with the band, and then I was doing hair shows every other weekend. So I'd like skip every other weekend and I'd go do a hair show. I was being mentored at the time with a very famous hairdresser, and he was using chicken wire and mesh, and he was using that to shape and mold the hair into different positions and types. And then he was putting over it synthetic hair to really really show off and fill in the model's hair. And
Yeah.
I would tell him, I go, I don't understand why synthetic. He goes, well, this model doesn't have long enough, and I'm not going to spend $2,000-3,000 to get human hair to just do it just so the camera can suck its soul out. And I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, well, the camera will flatten an image. So it doesn't matter how silky smooth, or it doesn't matter how shiny you make this hair. If it's human hair, the image in an image, it's going to get flattened out. So when you're using a synthetic hair, it's going to reflect more light. Now the game becomes balancing too much versus not enough light. You just got to find the perfect amount of light, and this will look really pop. It'll look really full. It'll look really amazing. Bernard, I took that back on the road with me for the bands, and I started integrating in the synthetics. Oh my gosh, when I tell you the mohawks, the spike, again, heavy metal bands, right? So the mohawks,
Right.
the spikes, some of the braids I did on the girls, with especially with the longer hair. Oh, baby, did it open up a whole new world of possibilities? Because then I only had to worry about, basically the new growth and just down to the ear. The rest of the length of the hair, I didn't care what color it was. I was blending it in with the synthetics. That
That's
was one of
amazing.
my first
That's a great
experiences
story.
and benefits
So
of synthetic,
one of the things you brought up there was cost. Do you know why synthetic is so much less expensive than human?
because it's plastic.
Yeah, basically,
I,
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't know.
No, that's the main reason.
Oh, okay.
It's mass produced. It's there's no shortage of plastic right now on this planet. It's hair is a commodity. There's only so many
Okay.
humans growing hair at a certain rate. And so you've got to have enough of the right sect of people, because generally it's coming from people who are in cultures where hair is not important in their life, a poorer country where they'd rather cut their hair off and sell it for a few bucks so they can afford other things that are more important in life. And then you've got countries like the US, and even China now has got a culture like us where hair is part of our fashion statement, or whatever statement, or makes us look younger, youthful, or fun, whatever it is, or just makes us look alive. If we're losing our hair from a sickness, we want more hair. So hair, there's only so much of it, human hair. And so as there's a shortage, the price goes up. And so it changes. But plastic hair, I hate to almost, it almost feels rude to call it plastic hair, because there is a time and place for synthetic, which we'll get into next. But synthetic, because it's a plastic fiber and there's different grades of it, or a nylon fiber, it can be mass produced, and
Mhm.
so it's much easier to be consistent, for one thing. And so that's one of the advantages that we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, they can just have so much more of it. But your friend was right to use it in ways where it doesn't really where quality is not part of the experience. Like the client is not going home. So that's one of the reasons why synthetic didn't work so well in the extension world. When you're putting hair on people's heads, there's two categories. There's daily wear and extended wear.
And
So if you're
extended, yeah.
if you're putting something on your head for the day, for the show, for the event, even if I know with bands it might be 3 or 4 days straight or a week straight, and that's
But that's still not considered extended hair. Like
right,
1 week is nothing in the
right,
grand scheme of it
right.
all.
So synthetic hair doesn't perform as well in an extended period of time on a person's head, because it doesn't work well with heat, whether it's friction, heat, body heat, hot irons, curling irons, flat irons. And so human hair can take more heat, and that's why it's preferred for extensions and extended wear and everyday wear for somebody who's just going to work and living and coming back a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months later to get it taken out and put back in, than human.
I have a question for you, because this is my opinion. I think human hair lasts longer than synthetic hair when you're having to daily brush it out and maintain it. Is that
So it's interesting.
accurate?
It's interesting when, depending on what we're talking about. Okay, so, and the uses. I think we'll go into that now, since we're kind of there. The advantages and disadvantages of human versus synthetic.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so through my life, my bias was one, then the other. And so I went back and forth and thought one was better. No, this one's better. Then I started to realize, like, okay, there's times and places for both.
Hmm.
Let me say something super controversial that I was doing right before I got on this video. I was doing a cap highlight on a men's hair system for a video shoot we're doing Monday. And as I'm doing it, I did a little bit of video because I'll show it at some point. But most hairdressers would say, never. What are you using a cap for? There's no reason for it. But there is a
What do
time
you
and a place.
mean?
Most hairdressers are pretty against caps for highlighting. Only foils is the only way you can do
Well,
it.
I'll tell you what, I'll tell you, I sound like you now. I'll tell you what, cap highlighting is actually rising back in popularity
Of
in the
course it
coloring world.
is. Because I said it was okay to do. I take
You
full
got me
credit for
southern there
that.
for a second.
You're welcome, clients. So we never stopped doing them. And I'm not behind the chair every day, but I still teach it in my trainings with my own staff, and most of them turn their nose up to it when new stylists come that have been doing hair for a few years, and then they come to one of my classes and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, no. So with synthetic hair, it doesn't work well in extended wear, first of all, right? And then you say which one lasts longer. Depends on where you're using it. So the crazy thing is you got to know exactly where one is stronger than the other, because they
Okay.
each have their strengths, even in pull tests. So human hair, we didn't talk about this, is porous and soaks up water. And you probably know the specifics about this better than I do, but human hair stretches differently when it's dry than when it's wet. What do you have to say about that? When does it stretch more?
Yes, human hair will stretch more when it has moisture in it than
Right.
it will when it's dry. It really does not pull, or there is not a lot of give to human hair when it's dry, but when it's wet, it softens. And then that's what we refer to as elasticity, the
Yep.
ability for the hair to stretch.
Right.
And that pull test that you're talking about is what we refer to as a tensile strength test, where my hair's not long enough to do it, but if you were able to take your hair and wrap it around your finger, like in the middle of the hair shaft, however long the hair is, if you could wrap it around your finger and then you kind of give it a little yank, a little pull when it's wet, you can see how strong it is or how weak it is.
Especially when there's a little meter that you can buy that has a screw on each end, and you wrap the hair around and then you pull till it breaks, and it gives you and you can do it when it's wet, when it's dry. Different people. The unfortunate part is you have to destroy hairs to do it and take people's hairs. A little sacrifice for science, but that's what I'm getting ready to tell you about synthetic hair. Is although there's lots of different kinds, for the most part, it has one strength. It is much stronger than human dry hair, but no flexibility. And so you can see the advantage and disadvantage depending on what's going on. On a quick tug of hair, a synthetic fiber will break, boom, because it doesn't have that stretch. But when you're brushing a human's hair and you get that little pull, you've got the ow that goes along with it, and so your head moves with it and it stretches, and so then it doesn't tend to break as often because it's, even if it's extensions or hair replacement, it's connected to the head, so there's some pain involved, there's some pulling, the head moves, and so you go with it. Whereas synthetic hair is generally in a wig, on a wig, and so the give is maybe the whole wig comes off, but if it's secured well and you're holding it and you're brushing and you brush a little too hard, you break hairs off if you're doing it too quick and there's a tangle. But on the other side of it, synthetic hair doesn't tangle as easily because it's a flat, smooth fiber. So it's usually not tangled, but it doesn't absorb water either. I mean, we should have like really wrote these down because I'm just kind of going all over the place with the advantages and disadvantages. Synthetic hair, although I'm stating a fact, it can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on what's going on. It doesn't absorb water.
It repels. Yeah, it does
Synthetic
not.
hair doesn't get wet. It doesn't get wet. Is that good or bad? You tell me. Depends on when and where you are.
I guess it depends on where you are, because the nature of a synthetic fiber is round. I think it's perfectly round. I don't think, does it come in any flatness textures?
So higher end synthetic fibers are coming in different shapes, different sizes, and with textured, like they're a little textured on the outside to look more like human hair. And that's the higher end, more expensive fibers. Wigs have come a long way and look really good these days, but the little bit more expensive ones are the fibers that have been run through, because in general, different colored hair, human hair, is different sizes. And you can take a dark hair of mine and say it's a certain size, but then as we bleach it, just like this black t-shirt, it's cotton. If we were to throw it in the washing machine and pour a half a gallon of bleach in there, it would start to look all weird colors. But you know how you bleach your whites to keep them white, and then all of a sudden you get these little pinholes in them because the fabric itself is getting thinner and thinner, and it's eating away the fabric. Same thing with a hair. It goes from big to smaller as you bleach it or lighten it. And lighter hair tends, not always, but just the people groups and the cultures, darker haired people cultures tend to have larger hairs. And then people groups that have lighter hair tend to be smaller hairs. And so in the higher end synthetic world, they actually make the darker hairs, and as they get to lighter, different sizes of synthetic. So they're doing a better job with synthetic hair these days, but that's great, but it's also a lot of choices, and it's not a cut and dry answer anymore. Like, is human and synthetic, which one's better? Well, there's not just one synthetic anymore. There's so many synthetics out there, which is great, because if you're doing something like you're doing with the rock bands, you can run to a local beauty supply and get low end, cheap, or order on Amazon and get cheap synthetic hair in any color you want. Raw hair, you can get it in different types, set up in different kinds of extensions, wigs, hair pieces, and use it like you want. Like you're saying, like for fillers, if you're doing a bun for a little girl for a dance, but she's got fine, thin hair, you can just get a wad of hair and put it there and wrap all the other hair around it. So if anything shows, looks like hair, and just do it with cheap synthetic hair instead of human hair. So that's, go ahead. I'm
hearing short-term wear.
Mostly, that's right, because the big disadvantage of synthetic hair is heat. That's number one. So no matter the quality of synthetic, most of it will melt before human hair burns. So human hair can take quite a bit of heat on it from flat iron, curling iron, ovens, barbecue pits. I mean, if you get in front of a barbecue pit and you open it, and you know that sometimes that little poof and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that heat wave of
That may sometimes singe some eyelashes or brows, but not burn your skin, because your skin can take a little bit more than your hair can take. So you might singe some eyebrows or some facial hair if you have it. Well, if you have a wig on, them bangs,
Gone.
them bangs. That's a southern dem. Dem bangs are gone. They shrivel up. They just shrink. They really curl up. They turn real curly. So a hair that was, where's the camera? That was like this long. It's still there, but it gets really short before it burns because it gets teeny tiny curly
You
when it.
know what my first experience with that was?
What?
We were at a bar, and certain bars you get certain shots. They'll light
Flames.
the shot on fire, and the girl,
With fire in it?
yeah, she went to take the shot while it was still on fire. You know, like it's a whole thing. But the flame, like as she did it, I don't know what happened.
Oh.
And it was, to me, like, okay,
Well,
so
they're
now
getting ready to do that. So the temptation is to fling your hair forward. And
it's
then,
hilarious. It was
oh my
absolutely, so
God.
now we're in the bathroom and I'm sitting there trying to stretch this back out again. And it was
Oh, it
just,
was a wig. It was a wig.
oh no, she had a wig on. Yeah, she had a wig on. She was embarrassed. You know, we're all on like a group date. We're all hanging out, goofing off with each other. And now she's embarrassed. She's like, he's gonna see me. Get it, come. And she grabbed my hands, run into the bathroom. And she's like, fix it. I'm
What
like,
bathroom do you go in,
in the
girl?
girls' bathroom. You know how many times I've been in the girls' bathroom in my life in a bar trying to MacGyver
Fix hair, huh?
fix hair.
That's
I've
hilarious.
smoothed hair out with lipstick before, Bernard. That's how desperate I've been. I need something waxy or something, right? Lip balm and lipsticks.
That's funny. So many times, synthetic hair is if it's just shrunk a little bit from
Sure.
heat. Many times it can be re-straightened and re-waved with steam. So a lot of times you can, I mean, you don't do it on the face because your skin now cannot take the heat that steam, the amount of heat that you need to change the wig texture, your skin cannot take. Because one time on my hand right here, I was testing the steamer on my hand. I was like, put it over it,
Ooh.
put it over it. I was like 1 second, I barely felt it. 2 seconds, barely felt it. 3 seconds, third-degree burn.
Yeah.
Took weeks to heal. I had to know. I had to know, how hot is this steam? This looks like smoke, It's a little warm there. And the little droplets that would form on the thing would drip and they would hurt a little bit. But I thought the smoke was harmless. It's not. So I never did it on a client because it'll hurt a lot. Take it from me. So you put it on a canvas block, a shaved mannequin head, whatever, and you can comb that hair or brush it and you can buy a $20 clothing steamer from Walmart, or you can do a more expensive $200 dress steamer that like clothing stores have. And that steam starts coming out. You put the steam on the hair and brush it or comb it, and it'll just go straight. Now you want to wrap it around a roller or a rod or get some wave or a round brush and steam it. And you know what? You steam it, and while it's hot, it's going to fall back straight. Then you take a water bottle and mist it, and that'll cool it off with water, and it sets the curl
It
immediately.
tempers it back. Yeah.
It just sets it into the curl. It's true to rod size. We've done a whole head in shampoo set rollers or perm rods, and then you put it all. You put it. It doesn't matter if it's wet or dry. You're doing it. You're rolling it up wet because it's easier. Leave it wet. Run the steamer over it, almost like you're blessing it with incense, and then you mist it with a water bottle to make sure it's cool. Take the rods out, and it will be a tight curl. You'll usually find that you went too curly the first time because human hair usually falls less curly than the rod.
Well, it relaxes because of the elasticity. Because of its stretch,
And
it'll
the
relax.
synthetic doesn't. So what's some of the advantages of synthetic hair? If you've got a wig and you think it got wet when you dip it underwater or get caught in the rain, really it's just water trapped between the fibers. So you literally can just shake that wig, hold the wig in your hand, just a little centrifugal force, or pat it with a towel, and most of the water comes out. You can blow it a little bit, but no hot blow dryer because that's going to melt it also. Warm blow dryer and just evaporating the water that's trapped between the surface. It's like wiping a counter down, and it looks wet for a minute, but it doesn't soak in, and then it evaporates over some time. Same thing with synthetic hair. But if you get caught in the rain, it could be a good thing because it doesn't look wet. But if you're wearing a hair system that's made out of synthetic hair and you have human hair here, when you sweat, your real hair starts to look wet and the synthetic does not. So that's one of the disadvantages. But when you go to shampoo, well, first of all, a synthetic hair system, wig, piece, whatever, doesn't get as dirty because it doesn't have the sweat glands, oil glands. It's not porous, so it doesn't soak up the smells from the air like a human hair
Right. And it
system would.
doesn't get frizzy or flyaways or staticky either.
Right. You actually have to create some of those with texturizing shears to make it look more real. Right. So those are some of the advantages. It stays clean and lasts longer over time. But then, and if you need to wash it, it's easy. You just dip it in a bucket of water, shampoo it, condition it if you want to get some slick.
Can you, because they used to tell us to use dish soap all the time. You can start
Doesn't
using
matter.
shampoos now. It
Doesn't
don't
even
matter.
matter. You can use a
It don't
bar
matter.
soap, shampoo, dish soap. It really doesn't matter because it's just a plastic fiber. None of it's
Okay.
staying on it. The real truth of the matter is, if you leave things soaked in water too long, you just risk the knots coming out, and that's or the base falling apart. But really, usually they're sealed in pretty well, because that's the other disadvantage of human hair is when you knot it to the base of a wig or a hair system, human hair does not want to stay in a knot. Although we get mats and knots and tangles, human hair is designed to untangle, unknot most of the time when it's healthy. So on a human hair system, the knots at the base are hard to put in place. Imagine, like I said about the steam, you knot a synthetic hair at the base and then they steam it and it locks the knot like it is, and it does not want to come out. So generally they stay in better, but you can literally usually soak a wig in water for an hour or two or overnight if you've got a lot of buildup of product, and it'll come out. The only thing I caution you against is usually the bases aren't always synthetic. Sometimes they're natural blends of cotton, and it can be a little bit more comfortable, but that will break down over time from the sweat and oil and salts of the body. So you want to clean it, but you may not want to soak it too long depending on the product. But the cool thing about synthetic is that you can reshape it with steam, but then some of the very high-end synthetics are made out of nylon, and steamers don't touch nylon.
Don't play with nylon very nicely at all.
Well,
That'll melt.
but some of the higher end systems, it's hard to cut. You hear the crunch. We're dealing with a company that makes hair systems out of nylon now, and it's a very strong. It can use a little bit more heat. A very strong fiber, lasts way longer than the old-fashioned synthetic. But I accidentally found out how strong nylon is because I knew about this steaming thing, and I had a paintbrush that was all frizzed at the end from just, over time. And I thought, I'm going to fix this paintbrush just like I do clients' wigs. And I put some steam on it, and I'm combing my paintbrush after I cleaned it, and it wouldn't straighten. So I tell the manufacturer that makes hair systems, I said, I tried to use steam on a paintbrush because I figured it was a synthetic fiber. It wasn't a natural fiber. And they said, oh, no, paintbrushes are nylon. Synthetic fibers are Kanekalon, Tupalon, and there's a bunch of different names for it. And I don't know what you're saying right now, but I just remembered nylon doesn't take heat well. Then I meet this company years later that says we have a heat resistant hair fiber. And I was like, what is it? And they said, it's nylon. And I was like, like a paintbrush. I can't. So I said, will you send me a sample? I want to try to see what I can do with it. They said, you can't change the curl. I said, what do you mean? I've got steam. And then it hit me. I couldn't change the curl of that paintbrush. I can't change the curl of this hair. So there are some synthetics that are getting more heat resistant, not quite as good as human. I can't put a hot iron. I can put a medium temperatured flat iron or curling iron. But what's the point? It doesn't change. It doesn't change the curl on it. It's just that if you want to curl your human hair that's next to the synthetic hair, you won't burn the fiber is the reason for it. So you see how there's advantages and disadvantages. Today, if you're going to buy a wig.
Super interesting. That's really, really interesting because especially considering the how do you say it? The like people are actively seeking out human hair all the time. And there's, I guess there's a huge disconnect between the perception of quality or the perception of price, and that's really what it comes down to is hair being the commodity that is really a lot of its expense. Additionally, finding the quality of hair, it really is, you get what you paid for. The main thing is when you're buying human hair, I think what a lot of people get confused about is what that human hair is attached to. Because I think the attachment areas matter just as much as the quality of the human hair matters as well too. You could have the best quality human hair, but if it's attached to a tab of plastic or to a um, to a string or something that's not high grade and is not going to be able to support that quality of human hair, that thing is still going to deteriorate and fall apart pretty soon. It's not going to be that extended where you're not going to get that full 3 months or potentially longer, depending on what type of human hair you have. So it really is a fascinating subject. Science is fun.
So here's a clip that RJ could probably take out for a little short clip if he wants something about wigs. I'm going to say what I recommend when people are wanting to get a wig is different than what most people think they want. I just had an old friend from years ago call me the other day and say, Bernard, I need your help. I need to get a wig and I need to get a human wig. And I said, why human? And they said, because I want it to be good. And I said, why do you think human is good? I don't know. Right. I know that you don't know. That's why I'm asking the question. So I go through a few of those things we just talked about. And I tell them, listen, I'm all for getting you a human wig if you want human haired wig. But a human hair wig is usually much more expensive. You can get a synthetic wig for $100 to $400, usually $200 to $300, and it looks really good. Or you can get human hair, which is usually $400 and up, $1,200 to $1,200, $1,500, even $2,000, because it's human hair. Even if it's low quality, it's more expensive because human hair is a commodity and there could be a shortage of human hair. There's no shortage of synthetic. And the fact that most synthetics have a rough surface on them, so it looks more like human hair these days, it lasts longer, it's less expensive. If you make a bad decision on curl, cut, color, you can replace it easier. You can go through 3 or 4 $200 wigs and get the perfect feel and fit. You can go into most wig shops and they've got a whole bunch of synthetic wigs on the counter. You can put them on. They've got real natural bases here. The older fashioned one had this weird flower cap on the whole thing. They had short fuzzy hairs at the base to hide the base because it didn't look real. And they called it, they had a name for it and I can't remember right now. But that short base was that was like indicative of wigs. It's what a wig had to hide the base. Then when they came out with lace front, natural skin looking membranes in this area, and then the stretchy area in the back, the whole top looks real. You can see right on down to the scalp, so you don't need human hair. It's almost like I recommend and talk people into synthetic hair, synthetic wigs more often than human, because they're going to take it off at night. And if you're going to sleep in it, definitely human hair. But with a wig, even my mom lost all her hair from COVID. And she was looking at wigs and she knew. She's like, yeah, I don't know, just whatever you think is the best. Let me just try it. And she ended up we tried everything actually, And the other thing is that if you get a human wig during the day, especially down here in Louisiana, the humidity, it might look beautiful in the morning. It falls. You have to style it regularly. You have a synthetic wig and the wave is in there that you like. I mean, yeah, it might be too curly, too straight, and there's no easily changing it. But once you get the one you like, it stays like that through the weather. You put it on your counter, you put it back on in the morning, you're styled. Especially women who are going through some sort of surgery. Like one of the best examples is when women have maybe have their breasts removed and they're limited in shoulder movement because they've had a lot of reconstructive surgery in this area. So they're not lifting their arms. They can just barely get a wig on. They are not wanting to spend the time brushing and styling or curling iron. They can't even get their arms up for a couple of months so they're done healing, or any types of surgery in the upper part of the body, or just getting older. We lose control or range in our shoulders. So a wig just ends up being better when it's synthetic most of the time. I feel like there's more advantages than human just because of the styling, if nothing else. Whew, that was a lot.
That's a fun one. This is a fun, this is a fun discussion.
Yeah.
Give me a comment section. Let me know what are 2-3 things that you learned today that you were not aware of.
Yeah, I got to go to work.
I
got to go where I got to go do something where I actually make money today.
Aw. You one of these days. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We really, really appreciate it. And we will catch you all next week.